Welcome back, everybody. Thank you so much for coming back again. Those of you who have already subscribed to our YouTube channel, we really appreciate the support and love. Those of you who haven't, please do. There's going to be loads of content coming up over the up and coming weeks and months and years and all of that stuff. You know what I mean. Also, make sure that you are following us on all our social media pages. For all the links, go to foreverjackson.co.uk. But right now, you're back again. It is our final interview in our little interview series, the final one for now. We might come back to it at some point, but for now, this is the last one. And oh, by the way, if you're wondering, I've not been locked up. They've not finally decided that I am as crazy as I seem to be. This is my little recording booth. Kids were being a bit noisy, so I thought I'd come in here. Getting back to it, this is the last interview, and it is with someone who's a great friend of mine. I've known her for many years, well before I was doing all the MJ stuff. I used to book her as a singer, and she is our backing vocalist. Her mum is our costumer. Her husband is our MD. And she's good friends with many people within the band and the show in general. Her name is Sian Turner, and we talk about all kinds of things, not just our friendship, but teaching me to sing, our history before the MJ stuff, her 5 years living out in Dubai, which was a wonderful experience for her. And I remember seeing her a couple of times out there. And also what it was like to play Anna in a touring version of Frozen, which was a big Broadway version of it, which toured out in the Middle East. So we're going to go through all of those things, plus lots and lots more. So enjoy this. This is the last one. We might come back to it at some point. Like I said, we've got loads more people that obviously are involved in the show that we can do some more interviews with. But for the moment, enjoy this final one, and we will see you soon. Here we go then, one more time. It is the interview series. It's the last episode, at least for now. We might do some more at some point. And I've saved someone very special, a really great friend of mine who I've known for, I think, about 1 million years now. I think it's about 1 million years. So maybe give or take a year or two there. She is the reason that I'm able to sing. She's taught me everything I know about singing. She's our backing singer. She's married to our MD. She is the wonderful, beautiful Sian Turner. How you doing, Beaut?
I'm good, Beaut. How are you?
I'm all right, thanks. Yeah, all the better for seeing you. It's been so long.
I know. It's just crazy, isn't it? It's been so long, yet only feels like 2 minutes.
I know. That's the great thing about good friendships. It never really feels more than a few minutes. So
absolutely.
Always. So it's really lovely to have you on our
Thanks for having me.
episode, our final one, and at least for now, as I said. So we're going to speak about all kinds of things to do with how you're involved in the show, but also, our history together and elements of, what it was like sort of being a singing teacher, teaching me to some extent, and everything in and around all of those different elements, as well as so much else. So let's get straight into it. Let's start at the beginning. And I'm not even talking about the beginning of when you first got involved in Forever Jackson. Let's go right back. How did we first meet? Can you remember?
Well, so this, obviously you've said it's like 1 million years ago. So my memory is always quite hazy on many things, but I'm almost certain that it was at Harlow Jumping Jacks, which is obviously where you were working, and I was singing, coming in, doing my bit, and then leaving again. But I always remember having the best time.
Well, of course, because it was Harlow Jumping Jacks and I worked there.
Right?
So, yeah, I mean, I remember...
one of the best ents people ever, you.
Of course. And that's very kind of you, and checks in the post. Not that anybody uses checks anymore. I'll backs it to you. Let's get with the millennium, shall we? Yeah, I mean, obviously, as an Ents manager, I used to book lots of singers, and you were definitely one of the people that I'd have at least once a month, whether it would be just you singing live on stage, whether it would be you on dueling pianos, and I think maybe once or twice with at least a band that you were performing with.
Yeah, that's a bit hazy, but yes, there was all, because there's been so many bands. There's definitely been an incarnation of a band at Jack's.
And then also, I know at certain times when we used to do singing competitions, you'd come and judge for me.
Yes, I forgot about that. Oh my god! And that was back in the days of, like, I'm going to say like Pop Stars, The Rivals, and things like that.
Stuff
And
like
I
that.
remember,
Jumping Jacks
I remember
cashed
having
in on that flow, didn't they?
exactly, and I remember having a T-shirt that says, "I want to be a pop star," and I used to wear that because I thought that was a good thing to wear as a judge.
Can you remember what the
Amazing.
name of the competition was? Because it was an annual thing for a number of years, wasn't it?
It was, and I did quite a few of them, but no is the answer. I can't
I
remember.
think,
What
if
was
I
it?
remember correctly, I think it was called "This Is Your Moment" or something like that. I
Oh,
think,
nice.
and it was cheesy as hell because they used to go, "It's not a karaoke competition. When you want to put it on, karaoke night, brilliant."
Well, that's when you got all the singers. So I mean,
Yeah,
you know,
and they
it's
used
going
to
to be.
like to make the stage look wonderful and more glamorous and more showy. What did they do? Give us a whole load of slash curtain, foil
I mean,
slash curtain.
they were the best, but I bet the people who cleaned them up at the end of the night wasn't, they weren't so
Oh,
happy about it.
we had to make them last. We'd have one set of slash curtains to last the whole event, like from week to week. And you'd be like that.
Really?
Oh, you'd have like armed security moving this slash curtain
Yeah, they
around.
weren't for any of the singers. They were just for the foil curtain.
So do you remember as
Amazing.
well at all much about the prizes? Because obviously it was a national thing, but from a venue point of view, how
And what
classy
was
this
it?
was.
Well, there was always a bottle of bubbly.
Yeah, but there would be a little bit more as well.
There, oh God, was it money?
No, come on, as if they were ever giving away money. Come
Maybe
on.
that was the competitions I joined then. I
You
only
used to
joined the
be
ones
able
for the
to
money.
win. You used to be able to win your height in crates of VK.
No.
That's how classy this singing competition was. I used to be the host. It was one of the things that we used to have to do back in the jumping, just to fill people in, just so people understand what we're talking about. It was a singing competition that was run in a chain of sort of high street live entertainment venues called Jumping Jacks back in the 90s and sort of early-ish 2000s,
Yeah.
and probably most of the 2000 really up till about 2007, 8, something like that.
Yeah.
And there was a competition that ran annually for a sort of, I don't know, like a few weeks every year, called, I think it was called This Is Your Moment, from what I can remember. And it was a singing competition. It was Jumping Jack's way of trying to find a new singer that would then win a contract to do an album. I don't know if that ever happened. And also
No.
the overall national winner would win it, of course. And they'd have regional finals, and you'd run sort of 4 to 6 weeks of this in your own venue, where you'd run your own final. The winner of that would go to regional final, and then there'd be a grand final. And the grand final, like I said, would win an album deal and supposedly a contract to go and sing in all of the Jumping Jacks as well, I believe. I don't ever remember seeing anybody
Wow.
that I
No.
know that had won it come through. And one of
And
you,
having sung on the circuit for that long, I never saw anyone either.
no, exactly. You would know about it because you were doing all of the jacks back in the day.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, so they'd win, but at venue level, they'd win. Like I said, they'd get through to the final, and win out in crates of alcohol. You'd be like,
Classic.
classy. So
Genuinely don't remember that. That's
well,
amazing.
you'd never get
What
away with giving that away now. Here is enough booze to kill you. Congratulations.
What? My question is this: what if they didn't like WKD?
I don't know what happens then,
What
because
did they get? Beer?
the thing is, VK were the sponsor, were one of the sponsors for it almost every
Right.
single year, so hence they'd win their height in VK. So, but yeah, back when alcohol was
Wow.
cool, kids. So,
And when alcohol was probably like green or blue or whatever color that drink
oh,
was.
luminous, and God knows what it did to your insides. So, but
And
yes,
you never wanted to see it again the next morning.
exactly. So we met obviously doing stuff in the Jumping Jacks days, and I shortly over the years I'd started doing singing lessons elsewhere before I came to Harlow. I was working in the Basildon Jacks and was doing singing lessons down in Leon C with actually somebody who had learnt off Michael Jackson's singing instructor, Seth Riggs. And then that became, when I moved to Harlow, that became way too much of a ball ache to go back and forth all the way to Leon C for a half-hour lesson. And so I spoke to you, I think. I believe it came
Yeah.
up for some reason in conversation. I'm guessing because, like I said, this is like a good, probably nearly 20 years ago.
Well,
Probably on that
yeah,
kind of
I would
level.
say more than that, to be
You
honest. I
reckon?
would say probably.
Did I know you?
Mm,
Because I don't know if I knew you before I was at Harlow. Um,
okay, so well, yeah,
and
maybe about
I
20
moved to
years, but
Harlow
definitely no
shortly
less.
after the millennium. So I think
Yeah, that
sort of
sounds about right. And we are in 2021, so I would say yeah, about that time,
about
about that.
20 years, give or take a bit here and there. But I remember it coming up in conversation, just off the top of my head, I think, came up in conversation. And you mentioned that you were a singing teacher or something along that lines. I said, oh, would you teach me? At which point, obviously, you had to say yes because I was booking you. So and it went from there, really. I'd come over to your house in Hemel, if initially at your parents' house, I think.
Oh my God, yes. Yeah, I'm still living at home. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I remember sort of, feeling a bit awkward going into your parents'
yeah.
lounge, not to because of the position, just like, oh my God, there's other people that's going to hear me sing. Like, not sure about that.
They weren't sitting in the lounge, just to clarify
No.
anyone watching. They weren't like, the audience.
And we were in the garden anyway. So, I mean, you'd be sat at your keyboard and we do lessons. And then eventually I know
Yeah.
you were at, I might have got it in the wrong order, but you certainly, I remember having lessons in one of your other places that you lived at one point, and you had a
Yeah.
flatmate.
Yeah.
I
So
can't
I
remember
moved out
where
of
it
my
was. It was still in
that
Hemel.
was in yeah, so that was in Adeyfield. So you used to come to my house, my parents' house, and then I moved into my flat, and then I moved from my flat to a house, and then obviously
Yeah,
there. And so I think you came to all of those places.
I think I have at one stage or
Yeah.
another. Definitely at some stage or another, I've been there. Whether all for singing lessons, probably. I
I
think.
mean, no. Nah,
Mm,
I mean, who knows?
who knows?
Yes, probably.
Nobody knows.
We don't, and if we don't, then there's no hope anybody else does.
So speaking of sort of what you do with singing and everything, and how did you first get into singing? What was it that sort of attracted it to you? Did you have family that sung that sort of influenced you that way? What was it?
No, my parents always had a really eclectic music appreciation. They always played loads of records, and I remember my dad playing 8-track in the car when I was a
Yeah.
kid, and just being really um inspired by loads of people. And I've got an older sister, and my sister used to, the minute she was old enough to go to the pub, would go and actually sneak me into the karaoke night. So I was, I was singing karaoke well and far, far before I was old enough to be in a pub. And I had some great teachers at school that kind of inspired me musically. And I think I just thought, well, this is a path for me. I really love music. I love singing. I do remember as a primary school child saying to my mum and dad, I'm going to join the school choir. And they both cracked up laughing, which is rude, isn't it? Don't you think?
Just a little bit. So it's
They're
funny,
like, what?
like it's funny how neither of your parents sung, but I know you sing. You mentioned that your elder sister sings. Did she ever sing touring as well?
So it's my younger sister that sings, but my
Yeah.
older sister was the one who used to take me to the pub
Right.
for me to
Okay.
sing.
I know. Obviously, I know
Um,
your younger sister Gemma sings and tours
yeah,
around, similar to what
yeah,
we do as well, to an extent.
yeah,
So,
absolutely.
so you kind of, from that point of view, you girls are all a little bit involved in it to some extent.
Yeah, I mean, my older sister Nikki would say definitely not. But yeah, no, I think oh, sorry, that's my dog making that noise, if you could just hear that. I
Get your
think
word.
yeah, I think that you just, I don't know, you just go with what you feel at the time. And
Yeah.
growing up, that's kind of what I felt like I enjoyed doing. And whether it, because I was doing it, that's why my younger sister thought, actually that's quite fun, I'm going to do that too. And she had some talent that she, that got her into the places that she is. And yeah, she's working hard, well, as hard as anyone can be during a global pandemic.
Which isn't very hard. So hopefully soon. Hopefully soon.
Yes,
So,
hopefully, fingers crossed.
so at what point, obviously, how long had you been singing before sort of teaching started to become a thing?
So my degree was like performing arts musical theatre degree, and I was actually teaching at a stage school for children whilst I was doing my degree. And that was only because a show I'd done, because what you need to realise is that most of what I'd done through my life in terms of formal training was musical theatre. And I was always doing the kind of poppy, rocky stuff on the side to earn me the money to just kind of, so I didn't have to work in a pub, although I think I did that too. And I was doing a show. I was actually doing Little Shop of Horrors at the Old Town Hall in Hemel.
Okay, cool.
As a teenager, and one of the owners of this Saturday stage school had seen me perform and said, "We need a teacher. Will you come and teach our Saturday school?" And
just quickly, what part did you play in Little Shop?
I played Audrey.
You was Audrey, okay.
Yeah, so I was Audrey, and I've actually done Little Shop twice, and I played Audrey and then one of the three kind of girls who kind of do the narration. So,
oh, cool.
Yeah, so
carry on. Sorry.
I mean, it's a dream part. Love it. But yeah, so that's how I got into this Saturday stage school, and then of course, I went off then to do a degree. I actually did a year out where I still taught at this school, and then I went off to do my degree and carried on teaching. And then it was just a natural progression, really. But it's never been something that's been, I'm going to be a teacher or I'm going to be a performer. It was always my teaching influenced my performing, and my performing helped and influenced my teaching. And I think that's really important if you're going to be a teacher of anything, whether it be, history or, sport or the arts, that you're still involved actively in the thing that you're teaching.
Well, because with anything, it evolves with time and, and technology and everything else that's involved in anything, really. There's constant ways and trends and things that happen. So, yeah, if you couldn't be a football manager today if you weren't into football today, for instance. You just can't. You've got to have your finger in that pie, let's say.
And you've got to keep up with how the industry is changing.
Exactly.
And what the kind of what the movements of the industry are.
Do you find it's important as a teacher to sort of know what's popular in music as well right now from a teaching point of view, so that when you've got young students coming up, you can find things that are going to appeal to them, whether it's something older that's got the same vibe as what's going on today, for instance, or whether it's just knowing the stuff from today that's teachable? Yeah,
I mean, for me, a lot of modern music is so throwaway that I tend not to lean to it. If I'm doing, because I work in primary, so I'm leading the arts as a whole in primary education, and for me, the kids inform me of music they like that I've probably never heard of, and I won't necessarily use that as material to teach them, but I use it as material to help inspire them to understand music and understand form and understand just basically how music is put together. But then if I want them to sing something or I want them to play something, I'll give them a cracking 80s tune and they love it. Because for me, that equally is important for them to know about music and artistry historically. And I'm not talking classical historical, I'm not talking about the great composers, although that's equally important as well, but I'm talking about giving them a really good breadth of knowledge of music as a whole, so that they can decide what they like, and it informs their future kind of music tastes. I mean, I know that's, if we're going back to my parents, that's why I love the music I love, because I grew up listening to the Rolling Stones and to Bob Marley and to Elvis Presley and to, the Beatles and all of these things that my parents listened to. So I think it's really important for kids now to have that informed historical view of music, and to Maisie shush, the dog's chuffing at me, to be able to inform their own choices of what they like. And inevitably music goes around, doesn't it? So styles that were around in the 60s, 70s, 80s, the modern music is just a reincarnation of those styles in some form.
And a
So,
lot of it gets sampled. A lot of it ends up actually either
right,
being actually just covered or sampled in some way, shape, or
right.
form. You know, so many songs today are cover versions, like with a new tempo or a new sort of feel to it.
Yeah.
It's like we've run out of songs. We've gone, right, start again. Let's start with the hymns. We'll start with the
I was
hymn.
going to say, but yeah, I mean, and I'm sure you could sample a cracking him.
Yeah, of course. You know, Morning Has Broken. What a tune! Banger. It's a massive banger.
Oh, brilliant.
So,
Yeah.
so has there ever been a point where sort of singing live and teaching have kind of got in the way of each other, and you've had to really pick? You've had a bit of a battle in your own mind as to which route to go down. Have they always managed to sort of balance out, or do you prefer one over the other?
That is a really tough question. I think they've always pretty much balanced out, but I think the older I get, the harder it is to do both,
Yeah,
which is why, in some ways, um, the teaching at the moment through this whole pandemic has been a godsend because
yeah,
I haven't had to gig, I haven't had to rely on gigs, which has actually given me a bit of breath and given room to my teaching.
yeah,
So, so yeah, so that's it's. I mean, obviously, teaching, as anyone who might be listening and watching knows, and teaching in mainstream education at this moment has never been, well, it isn't normal.
mm,
Hopefully, it'll get back to that, but yeah, it, it's given room for me to expand and change up and explore more ideas for that, and then hopefully when the gigs come back and we can get on the road again, so to speak, it will just mean that we'll all be like on our A game.
yeah. So going with the teaching for the moment, your kids went back to school this week. I know my two went back to school this week at primary level. You
Yeah.
are ahead of your department, am I right?
Yeah, yeah. So
In a primary
yeah,
school,
so
isn't it?
yeah,
How's this week
so
been like with the first few days of? Has everybody come back? Have you introduced only certain age groups?
so no, so we've had everybody back. Um, I actually have been in school the entire time because
Yeah,
the way that each school has worked their rotas and their staff has been, their own choices. But with us, we have had staff in on a just a rota, right? So we've all been in at some point, and I've been in pretty much the whole time, and doing a lot of kind of online Facebook live sessions, just basically being a tit on Facebook for the kids to watch while they're home. But yeah, no, this week they've all been back, and I think the overwhelming feeling of the kids is that they're just so happy to be with all their friends, and it's really nice to see. Pretty hard to control, but very nice to see.
yeah. I mean, my two obviously went back to school this week as well, and as a parent who's had to do homeschooling, it's been probably the hardest thing I've ever had to do, and I've done a lot of crazy things over the years. But
Haven't you just?
homeschooling in an environment that's not gauged for teaching and being somebody who hasn't one been in a primary school in an educational manner for nearly 30 years, and two has no training as a teacher whatsoever, but then add to the fact that you're teaching two kids of different ages, different classes at the same time. We're in, like I said, in an environment that's full of distractions and not gauged for teaching the scientists. Me and Gemma, my other half, have pulled our hair out. We are bald as can be from how like tough it's been. And when they went back on Monday, literally, I didn't see a single parent who wasn't grinning ear to ear and skipping out of that school. Like
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's so hard,
it
right?
was like the
It's
war had finished or something. Like we've done it. We've done it, everybody. Like it was mad. But as you know,
yeah.
from yourselves' point of view, from a teacher's point of view, it must have been tough for you guys too, because you're still going doing the stuff within school because you've still got students in there when it comes to key workers and their kids still going to classes. But then you've got to
Mm.
think about the kids outside of the school, although you're not actually teaching them. It That's a lot to juggle.
It is a lot to juggle, and I think that as I say, every school has its own way of doing things, but I know for my school particularly that there was so much attention to paid to just as much as we can give to everybody, whether that be the children that are at home, the children that are in school, and just essentially double work, because of course you're preparing work for children in the school, you're preparing work for children at home, and you're also trying to keep a balance, aren't you, between that kind of academic achievement and the well-being of those children, because certainly at primary level you are very aware that a lot of these children don't actually know why they're not allowed to be at school.
Yeah,
And
well, at the age groups that you're teaching as well, even
Yeah.
more so, there's less of an understanding. I mean, my kids are just absolutely at ease with Corona. It's Corona's stopping us from doing. Oh God, Corona's means we can't go.
But if you ask them what that was, they'd go, you know.
Yeah,
So,
that Corona's just a thing that just makes everything really awkward and rubbish.
yeah, it's just it's a word that actually means that it's stopping them doing the things, well, stopping life for everyone, isn't it?
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So let's bring it back to Forever Jackson then. So regarding Forever Jackson, and sadly nowhere near as often as we'd all love it to happen, but you on occasion will come and be a backing vocalist for us.
Yeah.
How do you find that? How's it differ from, say, other gigs? Are there things that you love about it? Are there things that you're not so keen about it? You know, tell us.
I love it. And I love it so much because as a female vocalist, I rarely get to sing Michael Jackson, okay? And Michael Jackson is one of the people I listened to growing up. I had all the albums, I knew word for word, all the songs. I used to obsessively listen to his music. I love so much. And when you said you were going to, I remember clearly, which is one of the things I do remember clearly, you saying to me, yeah, I'm going to do a Michael Jackson thing. And I don't think I'm going to like make it a tribute, but I'm going to just sing his music. And I was like, yes, sing his music. I will help you just like get all that. And so it's obviously it's evolved, hasn't it? It's become
massively.
And sorry, I will finish the sentence, but I remember you singing the Michael Jackson stuff at Jack's and me being like, woo, come on, you know, and you being as passionate about his music as I was at the time.
Yeah.
And so when it all came to being an actual show, I was, you know, I basically threw myself at you, Robin, to be a backing vocalist.
Not for the first time. No, I'm kidding.
Well, I mean,
imagine. Don't tell anyone.
No, that's a secret.
I remember, obviously, when I first came to teach with you, going back to that, and with keeping on the Michael Jackson track, when I first came to sort of learn with you, and saying that obviously this is what I'm a fan and I wanted to sing Michael Jackson. And so that's what we focused on initially. And then obviously we moved on to lots of other things like Stevie Wonder, I clearly remember singing. Obviously we sung Bon Jovi because it's you and nothing else will ever be allowed to some extent. You know, it has to be a bit of Bon Jovi in there. But when it came to the shows, obviously, when it came to me gigging and starting this thing, for me, it was always a no-brainer. You had to be involved whenever I had an opportunity to. And I've obviously been approached by other people I know who've always said, I'd love to be a backing vocalist for you. And I'm hoping one day we'll be able to put more on. But if I'm only allowed one backing vocalist, budget only allows that, you always get first dibs.
Oh, so thank you.
Has to.
I love that.
It's the joy, like having you on stage, and it's always fun because I know I can turn to you after a gig and say, how did I sound? And you'll be honest. You won't just tell me whatever. You'll go, that was good. I really liked that. Perhaps you should work on this a little bit more. Like,
but hopefully you view that as something that
massively
will improve, and I can help. I don't just go, yeah, you need to work on that, but I don't tell you how to.
No, but you do. This is the great thing. Like, this is where, as my teacher, as my singing teacher, not just a really close friend, you've continued to be my teacher. Like, even only a year or so ago, a couple of years ago, it wouldn't have been a year ago because of the pandemic and the way it's been, but a year or two ago, I remember phoning you and saying, I want to get better longevity out my voice. I want to make it sound more like this. And playing you a specific vocal of somebody singing Jackson, but it sounded the spit of Jackson, but it was quite light. And you go, yep, give me a minute, listen to it, work it out, right, come over. And having another lesson with you. And that, I remember specifically what you taught me then made such a difference on the next gig. And watching back bits of footage where audience and production team had filmed some bits and listening and going, oh my God, it's so much better. So much.
And I think it's really hard when you do the same, not obviously exactly the same, but you're doing the same thing over and over again, and your brand and your show is a model. It's very easy to get into a pattern of kind of muscle memory, if you like. You just do it, and you don't, you know, you are very good at self-reflection and looking at what you've done and going, how can I make this better? How can I change this? And that's everything, including your own performance. And I think that's what keeps the show fresh and interesting and keeps people coming back. And it's great to be able to have that reflection specifically for your voice, because, you know, as we all do, we get older and our voices change. And sadly, Michael Jackson, because he's no longer here, his voice will never age. So we will only ever hear a 20, 30-year-old Michael Jackson. But one day we'll probably hear a 40-something-year-old Robin.
Well, 40 now, 41. So
I said 40-something, 40-something. But my point is your voice is going to age, and but his won't. So inevitably the changes are going to be more obvious. So anything you can do vocally to help you maintain the sound and the stamina and that kind of movement in your voice, whilst obviously being safe with your voice, because that's obviously another easy mistake.
That's something we've spoken a lot about over the years, because of that high raspy sound, and you've always been very sort of, I need to check what you're doing with that, do that in front of me now. Oh, it's all right, no, you are placing
do it now.
Fine. I remember we've done that before, like either just before a gig or whatever. Excuse me. And it's like placing it and, oh no, I can see you're not pushing it, I can see in your throat you're not pushing it or anything. So it's,
and that's really important for stamina in a show, you know, not just in one show, but I know you do so many shows in a row, and you know you're having 2 hours sleep and then driving here and often it's all those in between bits that are going to mess up a vocal performance. And it gets a lot of people in trouble, not just, you know, even the biggest stars. Look at Adele, overworked and ends up with a voice problem. So it's really important to be mindful of that.
So going back to being on stage with our show then, obviously you know a lot of the people, you've known them for years, longer than I have, some of them, you know. Obviously Nick, who's our main bass player, you've known him for many years. Didn't he used to perform in the Collective with you?
Yes, so we were in a band together, but pre that, before I even, in fact, I think I was maybe still at school or college when I met Nick, and he was playing in a covers band called Enough Said, and I was playing in a covers band called Clear Cut, and we were rivals.
Nice.
I'm not sure he will remember it like that, but we always used to want to get the big gigs, and then he would want to get the big gigs.
You'd undercut price to get their client.
I mean, maybe. Who knows? But yeah, so I knew Nick for a long time, a long time. And the same with Matt, of course. So Matt was in a band called SEP, and he would play the same gigs as me, and we would basically be like a rotation, right? SEP would play, and then we would play, and you know, and it would go like this. And I vividly remember, again, very, very specific one-off memories I have of SEP playing in the Firkin in St Albans, me being behind the bar as my bar job, pulling a pint, and then just going, hang on a minute, bar manager, I'm just going to go sing a number with the band, I'll be back. Zipped up, sang a bit of whatever it might have been. I'm sure Matt might be able to remember, and then back behind the bar.
For anyone who's not sure, Matt's our drummer, obviously. So we did an interview with Matt. Well, I filmed it yesterday. We recorded it. So, He's done a lot over the years, but
He
I'll let
has,
people
he
watch the
has.
interview to find out about that. So, okay, so let's move away from Forever Jackson. We'll come back to it because there's definitely some things I want to talk to you about that. Growing up and sort of in your singing career and as a teacher and all these things, dare I ask this, who have been some of your musical heroes? Because I know exactly who you're going to say to start with, but
Well, I mean, obviously, Bon Jovi is my favourite band in the entire world. My love affair began with Bon Jovi the minute that Take That decided to split up.
was
Okay,
you a
so
Take
that's when
That fan as well then?
I was, yeah, I was a batter, a
Wow.
Take Batter.
Who was
I
your
was one of,
favourite?
I loved Mark Owen. I did,
Oh.
yeah, yeah. I'm afraid I'm not so keen on his kind of moustachey, hairy look at the moment. I
Yeah,
don't know what
he went a bit off the rails, didn't he? A little bit.
yeah, I
So.
want to take a pair of scissors to him.
He's kind of
Yeah,
like the
not only for the
bad boy
hair.
that's not a bad boy, isn't he? But he's got that sort
Yeah,
of like, I want to be a rebel, but I'm really nice still. So.
yeah, but he was always lovely. He was. Anyway, I digress. So yeah, no, so huge Bon Jovi fan. Have been a fan of theirs for 20 years. Been to every tour they've ever done, apart from one, and that was when my friend got married. And
How rude.
yeah, no, I mean, come on. I growing up, I always loved, and again, this is come from going back to my parents,
Yeah.
the Carpenters. So actually,
Okay.
listening to the Carpenters when I was a kid made me want to sing. So and I used to, in those days when I'd go to the pub illegally with my sister and sing karaoke, everyone used to say to me, "You should go on Stars in Their Eyes because you sound like Karen Carpenter."
Oh, really?
Ooh, Stars in Their Eyes.
Wow. I mean, that was the
So
show for tributes back in the day for
right,
anybody who doesn't know it. So.
imagine, and we're showing our age now here, aren't we? But Sting, I love Sting.
Yeah.
So I'd love to sing with Sting. The Boss, Bruce.
Yeah.
Coldplay. You know, I just you know, such a wide variety of people. And I'm a huge Elvis fan, again from my
Okay.
dad. So
I didn't know that.
did you not? No,
No.
yeah. So my dad used to play a lot of Elvis, and I knew so much Elvis music. And I always wanted to go to Graceland, and Lee and I actually went to Graceland a couple of years ago. And although he's been dead since the 70s, I actually came out of Graceland really pissed off that he was dead, because I was like, oh man, he was so good. What happened? But yeah, so all of these people, if I could sing with any of them, or if they, you know, if we're talking about who's my musical idols, yeah, a lot of them.
If you had to pick one, if you could only pick one of them, would it be John Bon?
Well, it depends what you want from an idol, because if you're thinking, you know, I idolize them as in I love them, I appreciate the music, but if you're thinking, who do I want to be like? I haven't even said those people, you know, because I haven't said any female vocalists.
I was just going to say, actually, yeah.
Yeah, so that's a whole different ball game, you know, because I obsessed about Mariah Carey's Vision of Love album when it came out in the 90s, and I was a huge Whitney fan. And then obviously Beyonce came along, and I was like, who is this queen? And then I had, you know, a full-on girl crush for Katy Perry and her music and her quirkiness and her brilliance and her unique vocal sound. And yeah, so also any of them. If I had to pick one, I can't. Sorry. Can't do it.
I refuse.
I do refuse. All of them.
We'll make like an amalgamation of all of them into one mutant. It will be great.
I mean, imagine what that would sound like.
Oh, it'd be an absolute mess, an absolute car crash. We've ruined all of those people now for everybody. So you've told us about your heroes and, you know, the people that have influenced you over the years and stuff. Let's talk about some of your favorite moments, just performing in general, before we start to bring it back to FJ again. Sort of, you've performed in quite a lot of bands and things over the years. You've
Yeah.
performed obviously a lot of solo stuff over the years. Tell us some of your highlights, some of the things that your career highlights as a performer.
Okay. So, I mean, a lot of them, well, not a lot, but some of them are just could have been career highlights, like near misses.
Okay,
So
so
when
the ones that got away. Tell us about some of them
yeah,
first, then.
well, so I had an opportunity to go and sing for a casting director for Les Mis, the pretty much the week that I finished uni,
Wow.
and because I was a bit blonde and flighty back then, I just forgot to call.
No.
Um,
Oh, beautiful.
Actually, do you know, I don't know whether it's that I forgot to call. I think I lost his number and forgot to look for it. And then when I was like, oh, yeah, I really need to call that guy. Could I find a number? No. I actually think I found it about 10 years later in like a book. So
Wow.
that's the kind of the one that got away. I did a lot of kind of open auditions when I finished uni, and I got into a girl band, which had some incredible connections. I actually went and did some writing with a guy who was writing and producing for Michael Jackson at the time. So this would have been 2002,
Okay, so that
2001.
would have been from the Invincible album then, I
Invincible
guess.
album,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
And then that kind of disappeared because at the time then that particular guy ended up working with a boy band. So there's us girl bands and then a boy band in America, and I think
Right.
you know, it's very cutthroat, and he
Yeah.
went with them and kind of
Oh,
abandoned us. But we had
God.
a really good run of kind of recording and writing, and did a few bits, you know, with various people, and this was kind of in the early noughties, as I say. So you know, we went to and did a few support bits and pieces for a few bands at the time. And I remember actually, because our management was also managing, now who was it? It was Steps and Blue and all those guys at that
Wow,
time.
okay.
And so we did a lot of kind of just go and hang out at the party, you know, as you do. And our manager called me. This was one specific time, and I was on my own, and he knew how much of a Bon Jovi fan I was. And he called me and he said, what are you doing? And I said, nothing. Why? And he said, can you be ready in an hour? I was like, why? And he said, I'm doing the tour management for the Capitol party at, now where was it? I want to say Wembley Arena maybe, and John Bon Jovi's performing. So I'm going to send a car, and I was like, what? And so of course I freaked out and got in the car and went there, and what, you know, I was this close to John Bon Jovi, just kind of went, and then off he went and did his thing, and then, you know, that was it. So that was a
And you
highlight.
died a happy lady.
Yeah, well, yeah, quite. I guess in other stuff, a really big one for me was when I played Anna, and I sang for the role of Anna in Frozen a few years back.
Yes.
That was a big one. I really
That was
enjoyed that.
massive. That was out in Dubai, wasn't it?
Yeah, so I was living in Dubai at the time, and there was an audition come up for the UAE tour of Disney's Frozen, and I did an audition, and it got sent off to Disney, and they okayed it, and I got the role, and I was so excited, and then I basically shit myself, panicked. Oh my god, this is big. This is a big one. And the beauty of that was that it was with the UAE orchestra. So it's with a 70-piece orchestra.
Wow.
You know, it was incredible, and I had to pinch myself, because you would kind of turn around and hear all these strings and all the brass players and the, you know, the big choir behind you, and the timps, and just all these amazing big orchestral instruments, and then you go, no, that's definitely not a track. They're definitely there.
That's
you know,
the amazing
like
thing about the UAE, and we will speak more about it in this interview. But They never do it by half. It's full on or not at all. It's more than full on. Everybody else's full on is half ass compared to UAE.
Quite.
I love doing shows out there. It's always incredible. So
Yeah.
and we're going to talk more about that in a minute. But for a moment, let's just take a little break from these questions and do something slightly different. So in each of these interviews, we've done like a quick fire round.
Okay, ready.
So I sent you all of these questions prior, all the questions that we've spoken about so far, and a few more to come. But with the quick fire, I don't send anything over to anybody because I want it to be a bit more gut instinct, a bit more sort of first thing that comes to your mind. So it's quick fire. It's just fun as always. And what I do is I'll give you the length of a dance break. So we're going to do the same break.
No,
everybody.
Dance break.
So which is your voice, of course.
It is
your voice. Another
dance
thing we'll
break.
speak
Leave
about
me
in a
alone.
little bit, I'm sure. It literally says that. Probably I might not on this one. I think because it used to say Jackson Live, our old thing. So it might just say dance break actually. So we'll find out in a minute.
All right.
Here we go then. I'll tell you when your time starts. There she is. Time starts now then. Favourite MJ song?
Earth Song. I don't know why I said that. It's not.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Summer or winter? Have you ever won anything?
Yes.
What?
Some tickets.
Oh, very nice. Okay. So, drunk or sober?
Me personally,
Yeah.
sober.
Oh, I think I know the answer to this one, but favourite band?
Bon Jovi.
Comedy or drama?
Comedy.
Okay. Would you rather have all toes or all fingers?
All fingers. You can do more with them.
I think you watch this show, but Cobra Kai or Miyagi-Do?
Oh, Cobra Kai.
It's got to be, hasn't it? What's your favourite Disney character?
Princess Anna.
Favourite TV show?
Only Fools and Horses.
And that is time. Well done, Beaut. That was good. You was quick on that.
Oh, I love a spontaneous question thing.
I got a feeling at one point one of your answers got slightly muted on summer or winter.
Oh.
What did you say? Did you say?
I said winter, but if I had a choice, I'd pick autumn.
I was going to say, oh, okay, right, all right.
I don't know why you didn't give me all four. Why'd you give me just two?
Well, quick fires, quick. That's more words to fit in. So we talked very, very briefly just a moment ago, and let's go into it a bit more. For I believe it was about 5 years, you lived out in Dubai. Tell us how that happened and a bit about your experiences out there.
So it happened because my husband was working for a company that did music for media, film, TV, events out there. And the opportunity came to kind of go and be out there. And so we took it because why not, right?
Absolutely. That's it at the end.
We took it. I mean, I guess it went so quick, and Lee was out there a little bit longer than I was, but it is a whole different world. And I think I didn't really know much about the UAE as a place prior to going and living there. We visited. But it was also the year before we were getting married, so I was a bit like, I need to plan a wedding. I can't be doing with thinking about moving to another country. And so so I didn't know much about there. I didn't know what to expect. I knew there was a really big expat community, but I guess I went out with the thought of wanting to just be a little bit more involved in what the place has to offer, and the fact that it's really global. There's people from all over the world living there, and that, I would say, to me, is one of the most special things about our time there, is that we made friends from all over the world, literally everywhere. So Australians, Kiwis, Canadians, our neighbours were Indian and were incredible, and one of my friends who actually was someone I did some singing with out there, German. She was German, and one of my really good friends is South African and American,
Wow.
and yeah, so I do feel really lucky to have met all of those people.
It's one of those places that never feels quite finished. They're always doing something else. It's always forever expanding and evolving. Like there's we've done obviously a number of shows, and even a couple of times when I was out there I came and saw you,
Yeah,
obviously, then you came
yeah.
and saw me, which was absolutely fantastic.
Oh, I did get
um,
drunk that night.
you did indeed. Yes, you did. But it's one of those places where no matter where you go there, you just feel so welcome. People are lovely out there, like
Yeah,
whether they're people that have moved there, whether they've lived their whole lives there, everybody's so welcoming and friendly.
they
um,
are.
it's a very
And actually,
corporate industrial feel everywhere, but like I said, it's constantly growing and evolving. I've never been there and there's not been something new being built, something massive being built.
absolutely. And I think that kind of Emirati or Arabic, I guess, mentality is being bigger and not necessarily better, but expanding, and improving, and that's always what was going on. Like say, there was new roads being built and new shops being built and new houses, and then they would like just decide to build a canal, and then they would build a like a big. When we were leaving, there was a big giant photo frame being built that you could stand a few miles back, and I don't know if it was a few
Wow.
miles, maybe a few hundred meters, and
It probably
just
would
get
be
some
a few
great.
miles knowing how they do things
I
out.
mean, quite, yeah. And if anyone's ever been to Dubai, you would. The Burj Khalifa is
Yeah,
obviously humongous,
incredible. And
and
yeah,
that's very symbolic of the kind of vision of what Dubai is, I think.
everything's what they do is always got to be, it's got to be the biggest, the fastest, the most impressive. It's always almost like
The
like
shiniest.
the Guinness World Records just needs to move out there and just take residence, because they'll always have
Yeah,
something to do. So
yeah, quite.
you, while you're out there, you mentioned obviously that you worked with the Frozen tour. What other things
Yeah.
did you do related to singing and singing teaching and stuff while you was out there?
So do you know what? I did literally anything that came to me. So I did some one-on-one vocal lessons. I put a little group of actually expat mums and women that were just kind of looking for something to do, because of course there's a lot of husbands that go out to work and the mums are there just like twiddling their thumbs, although they're not, because you brunch and you sit by the pool and
Yeah.
live the life. But so there was lots of women that were really interested in just doing new things. So I did a little vocal group, which was really good fun. I did a few gigs. I did lots and lots of events, and this was something that came into my time there quite late. But I joined an events company that did corporate training, so lots of team building through, be it through music or through dance or through various things. And so I developed and organized a vocal team building. And so one of the highlights there was delivering a talk to about 1,000 Emirati and Indian employees of a company, and getting them all to sing and we can build this thing together.
Excellent.
Nothing's going to stop us now. And they loved it. They lapped it up. And it was great, because actually at the end of it, they were all having a whale of a time. And those kind of events were quite often, not always vocal. I did a few that were with a few members of the UAE orchestra, and we did Carmina Burana as a piece, and taught people to play violins and timpanis and all kinds of instruments. It didn't sound amazing in one day, but it wasn't bad. And then I did lots of events that were out in the middle of the desert doing kind of Arabic drumming, and it was pretty good.
You mentioned obviously some one-on-one tuition. I'm sure at some point you told me you was teaching someone who was almost like the Middle East version of Tom Jones or something like that at one point.
So it was that's so true.
I'd love to see a Middle Eastern Tom Jones. That'd be incredible.
Right. I mean, he was very charismatic. His name's Kadeem Al Sahir, and he was essentially the Arabic Tom Jones. He had a huge recording career, and he was looking for I think he was doing a new album. He just wanted a few kind of vocal pointers, and obviously I hadn't been there very long, and you know, you probably shouldn't go into a random millionaire Arabic man's apartment on your own, but I did.
No, it's not advised.
But you know, he was great, and he had an insane apartment overlooking the beach, and a beautiful white grand piano in his lounge, and he offered me tea, and we talked about music, and we talked about his voice, and he sang to me, and I gave him some pointers, and it's really interesting because of course Arabic voices are very different, just the melodies and the kind of movement, the glottal movement and of the vocal cords and all of these things. So it was a challenge for me to try and ascertain where he wanted help and how it sounded wrong, or how it wanted, you know, how he wanted it to sound. So
did you find
so
that a bit
great.
quite challenging? Because obviously, like, my experiences, like, I think of some of the music I've heard when I've been out there over the years, and obviously you'll hear tons and tons of the songs that we all know and love in general, from pop and rock and whatever other kind of genres over the years and decades. But when you hear something that's more native, more sort of in keeping with what they do traditionally, it's a very different ball game. Like, I think of like the kind of the singing I hear when it comes to the prayer times and stuff like that.
Yes, yeah, the call to prayer.
That's my go-to sound when I think of sort of a Middle Eastern stereotypical singer, if you like.
Yeah, and that's what I mean about that whole kind of the glottal shift.
Yeah.
I guess ultimately it doesn't really matter what it is that they are singing, as in what melodies or what style or even what language. The fundamentals of voice production are the same, right? So good breathing technique, good projection technique, good placement, and good I guess presentation. So initially, yes, because like I said, for me, I didn't know where he wanted change. I didn't know where he wanted to accent that sound and where he didn't, or whether he wanted to sound a bit more Western or whether he didn't. So just getting used to that was interesting, but it was great. Yeah. And there was talk of him kind of, you know, you'll come to my house in wherever it was, Turkey, and we'll do some more there, and I'll fly you to I was like, okay. Yeah, so that was
nice.
Pretty fun.
Good old Middle Eastern Tom Jones. Good for him.
Yeah,
I like
good old
it.
kiddie.
So let's bring it back to FJ for a minute. So obviously when we gig together, whenever and more often than not, it'll be more of a production show that you're doing backing vocals with us. But every now and then, and more often than not when you do that, we do a bit of a duet together.
Yeah.
And the problem that we have anytime we duet is that we're very good friends, really good friends. So then we've suddenly got to make it almost a bit of acting, as if we're kind of getting it on a little bit, sort of there's something there. And it's always a little bit orcs, shall we say? But
I cannot.
But
it
always ends
funny.
up laughing in each other's faces as well, to an extent, because it's just
or you
different.
end up accidentally touching me up.
Yeah, there's always an accidental boob stroke for some reason. It's when I try to sort of come in a bit close, and you'll do the same thing. So your arm goes up, and I go round. And it's like, oh, sorry, grazed the boob again.
But then, of course, I just laugh and
obviously
have to turn away because, you know, I need it to be sultry.
It always makes me laugh because, and there was the one time when I think where you couldn't find me, where you sort of turned and I'd gone and you turned and where's there,
and I must have had this look on my face.
Yeah, which is perfect for I just can't stop loving you, because that's the fate you want. Well,
yeah.
So it always makes me laugh. It always brings it
brings joy to my life, I have to say.
Yeah, because and the other thing is, you'll always have to get off this giant podium and hop down, try and make your way round in time. So
and inevitably I'm wearing really high heels, and every single time I'm like, I'm gonna fall over, I'm gonna stack it on this box, or I'm gonna walk on trying to be all kind of sexy, and then I'm just going to go
I
and fall
think the
into
last time
you.
you even left your shoes up on the podium and came out barefoot.
I mean, that does sound like something I would do.
So
It is a
yeah,
constant worry, that one.
and I always feel bad for you because obviously this is a point in the show where we're about 2/3 of the way through the first half, and I'm not an attractive man anyway, but once I've got an inch of makeup on and a bit of prosthetics on my nose these days and a massive wig, and I've been dancing hard and singing, I am one sweaty mingo by the time you get to the stage. And then you've got to get right
Yeah.
all in my face and everything. It can't be nice for you.
Oh, what can I say? I'm a professional.
What can I say? I'm just a pervert. And that's the thing I like. Just
Yeah.
sweaty
You're
makeup.
lucky I don't come up and just like go,
I'd die.
oh,
I'd
I
be on
should
the
just
floor.
gross myself out then.
Yeah, you gross me out because I mean
Sorry.
that's a lot of salt. That's your salt intake for the entire week. The amount of sweat that's on me, grimness all the way through, totally grim. So
Brilliant.
that's one of my favourite moments. Have you got any favourite moments from performing with us?
I just love it all. I've got to say, I know that sounds cheesy, but I do love our duet. But I love watching the show, which is something that, as a backing vocalist, as long as I know what I'm doing and I won't come in at the right time, I can just be at the back living my best life because I'm just watching you guys perform, and I love Dirty Diana. I love the whole staging of that, and I love when the girls are dancing because you've got that kind of interaction. I can dance too, and I love Smooth Criminal with the whole guns. I think that was a gun, just in case you wondered. Yeah, so I just love that. I love watching the show, and it's always really good. And also, what's brilliant about being a backing vocalist and not having that pressure on you to make sure you have so much to think about all the way through is that I can watch the reactions of the audience, and that's always a really, really good thing.
That's one of the things I rarely ever get to do. And anything else going on, like for instance, the production team will come up to me and say things. Did you like what I did with the lighting on Thriller today?
And you're like,
and you go, yeah, it was. Was it different? I'm so in your moment and so concentrating on what you're doing. And again, same with the audience. People go, oh, did you see that person? Oh my God, amazing. And sometimes they might catch your eye, but more often not, you're so into your thing, doing what you're doing, you just don't take it in. So
no,
it's always good fun.
It's really good. And obviously it's just the power of music, isn't it? Whatever whatever you're performing at that time, people are just loving it, and that's really good.
I think that's one of the things as well. With Michael Jackson, obviously he's been going for so many decades, and even now, even though he's passed away, he's still the biggest selling deceased artist. And you've got people like Elvis Presley and people like that, Amy Winehouse, so many big names, and yet he's still the #1 deceased selling artist. And I go to these gigs, no matter whether it's a full production thing, whether it's a holiday park, a hotel, a resort, a festival, whatever it is. And you've got age groups from literally like 3-4-year-olds right up to, people in the 70s and 80s, all knowing the songs. Some of the kids dressed up in the gear and knowing the music and the dance routines. And it's amazing really that, we're talking 11, 12 years nearly, 11 and a half years since he passed away, and he's still absolutely gripping new fans. So
yeah. And I think that goes back to what we were saying at the beginning, which is depending on what you grew up listening to, you then put that onto the next generation, right? So there'll be a whole bunch of kids who grew up in the 80s listening to Michael Jackson who will be playing it to their kids. So
putting that
really
out
important.
there then. So with today's music and how we know it can be quite throwaway at times, what's the next generation going to be? What's going to last? Do we think it will still be the same idols that we sort of uphold today? I mean, obviously you've got a few standouts like Beyonce, and I don't know, but like people. I mean, if you're trying to pick people from say the 2000s and the 2010s, who are going to be the ones that are like still on that pedestal, still seen as the greats?
Yeah, that's a really good question.
Worrying time for
I'd
music.
need, I'd need to think about that
It's going to
one,
be
because
Ed
I'm sure there
Sheeran,
are
isn't it?
people.
Oh
Yeah,
man.
yeah, probably Ed Sheeran, maybe Stormzy.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
guess so.
he's great at what he does. You know, and actually,
I think you're going to
I
have
was
that
never a big fan
longevity.
until, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think I was never a big fan until I watched him do Glastonbury, and then I was like,
Okay.
do you know what, this music is powerful, whether it's your bag
Yeah.
or not. You know, and it, impacts people, and then they carry on listening to it. So,
Massively. And I think as well, I think if your music has a message behind it that continues to stay relevant, which is something that
mm.
obviously the later years of Michael Jackson's music did have a lot of that in. If you think of things like Earth Song, and you think of things like They Don't Care.
Which, by the way, I said was my favorite song, and it isn't.
Of course, of course. What is your favorite MJ song then?
Well, you see, I love Man in the Mirror, but that actually, he didn't write that song, so I'd need
No.
to pick one he wrote, and I think I would say Human Nature.
Oh, I
He
love
he
that
did
song.
write that one. Yeah, Human
Uh,
Nature.
I think he did. I think he wrote that one. I get
Or
lost because I think of them all as his songs, but
sure,
obviously, like,
sure.
a lot of the really big hits weren't written by him. So
Yeah,
obviously, things like Thriller was Rod Templeton, I believe. I might have said that wrong.
right.
So, but yeah, no, but I think going back to I think if you've got a strong message that quite often ends up being a bit timeless. So, for instance, with Earth Song, you're talking about looking after the planet, something that is a huge, huge thing, and constantly a talking point all over throughout society, more so now
Mm,
than ever. And that was a song he did 25 years ago. So,
mm,
and yet, you've got those. And I think if today's artists do have that element going through their music, that's what I think what helps keep things relevant to an extent. That might be the way
100%.
forward. So,
Yeah,
so you are married to
I am.
a man who you introduced me to, who is a huge part of our show. He is the creator. He's kind of musically directed pretty much everything we do. I don't think there's a song that he hasn't initially created for us.
No,
Certainly
probably not.
certainly our version of it, shall we say. Obviously the
Mm,
songs were there, but he's then put his stamp on it more often than not, and sort of his touch. And he is a great friend of mine too. Somebody who I can spend hours with laughing and having a good time with. And it's great when he does come on the show, because obviously at one stage he wasn't just our musical director, he was our lead guitarist as well.
yeah, yeah.
He is Lee Turner, of course, your husband. How did you guys meet?
So we met after I finished. Well, I hadn't quite finished doing all the jumping jacks,
Yeah,
one person gigs. And Nick, the guy, obviously, who is your bass player, who I spoke about
yes,
earlier, was a really, really old friend. He was in a different band called The Collective, and he said, "Look, we need a singer. Our singer's left. We've got some gigs. We need you to kind of fill in." And I said, "Okay, well, I'll do one, but to be honest, I don't really want to join another band because." I'm loving life on the road on my own. I'm doing all my gigs. I'm doing my thing, and I'm meeting loads of new people. And anyway, so I went and I did these run of a week's worth of gigs, and I met Lee, and then of course that was kind of it. They had me hooked in because they managed to snag an attractive guitarist that made me go, "Oh, all right then."
see,
So
I
yeah,
remember when you first met Lee. I remember little bits from my memory. I'm trying to sort of
you're
put
so
it a little
good.
bit
This is
more
why I
clear.
have good friends.
But but I remember you saying that you'd met somebody, and I remember you saying like I'm pretty sure it was him. You'd had a moment where I think you got quite drunk. I think you got
Hmm.
quite drunk and just decided, are you going to make a move, and just kind of made a move a little bit. I'm sure something like that. Pretty sure it was about Lee.
I mean, I don't think it was about anyone else, in case he's
Exactly.
watching.
So
Yeah, no, well, I mean, look, I was very drunk. So even though in the quickfire round, when you asked drunk or sober, I said sober because mainly I am these days. But
These days, yeah, definitely.
these days.
We all grow up, don't we? That's the problem. Can't hack the hangovers anymore. So
No, it's so true. It's so true. But yeah, so I think that's kind of how it happened, and we we had a lot in common. He music, and
yeah,
he made me laugh a lot.
yeah.
And
No,
I'm attracted to people that make me laugh. What can I say?
you're lucky you
He's
beat me to
great.
it. I'd have married him otherwise. So. And he'd have been well over the moon. So
Yeah.
I'd have dumped
Oh,
Gemma
dear.
for him. It'd been great.
I'm sure Jen would have been happy. Yeah, you
She'd have been
go
fine. She'd have been fine. Obviously it would have been devastating for her, but she'd have
Mm.
moved on. So, she's a fairly attractive lady. But I mean,
I
I
mean,
obviously
she.
when me and Lee together, we always have such a good time. We literally make each other. He always makes me cry, laughing all the time. And it's always funny because whenever you're in the room with us too, we quite often will end up winding you up a bit, and just you end up just
we
like you're just a couple of tits. Just like,
quite. I mean, I've said that to both of you on many occasions. So
many,
yeah.
many occasions. So I'm really looking forward to obviously all of us getting back in a room together, hopefully sooner than later.
That'll be so good.
Hopefully. So before we wrap things up, then obviously we've touched on it a little bit, certainly from a work point of view. And I finished every interview on this same question because it's kind of the most important thing that's been going on for the last year, and it's probably the most biggest event. Hopefully nothing too much more serious will happen in our lives that we'll ever experience. So how has the whole last 12 months or so been for you? How's lockdown been for you from a personal point of view? We spoke about how it was from a work point of view with your teaching and school and stuff. Has there been some positives that have come out of it for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm quite a positive person, so
Yes, you are.
and I'm lucky because I feel secure to have a job and to not have to worry about paying the mortgage, and I don't have kids to homeschool. So for me, lockdown's been sorry, lockdown's been just it's obviously been difficult because I'm a social person. I like to be with people. I like to see my friends. I like to go and I'm a hugger. I like hugs.
Yeah, you are. Nice.
But yeah, but it's
Mother
been
hugger.
it's it's been fine. I've had an opportunity to do things that I probably wouldn't have the time to sit down and do, and I've kind of taken pleasure in little things like
What sort
kind
of
of going. Well, I love gardening. I love being with the dogs, so I go and we do a lot of walking with the dogs. And I've got a lot of cooking done, and the things that everyone's doing really, and actually just make small changes in the house and go through years and years and years worth of photographs and videos. So I remember when we were in Dubai. This is really bad, and I shouldn't have done it, but so when we were a few weeks after I'd done all the corporate events, I went and auditioned for doing some BBs for Andrea Bocelli when he was doing a gig in Abu Dhabi. And so and this is terrible, you should never do this if you're professional. So of course, because it's a classical gig, right? So we all had sheet music. But what I was determined to get some video footage of this gig from the stage, and obviously I would have been absolutely told off if I'd have gone like this.
Yeah.
So I carved a hole into my folder and stuck my phone in, press record, and I was doing like this as Andrea Bocelli was doing, and I was singing, and he was there, and I was here, and I found the footage. I was like, oh my God, I never actually looked at it. So because this is what the kind of thing you're doing during lockdown, right?
Yeah.
Looking through years and years of videos and photos. Anyway, or basically all it is a video of like feet. It's not even like a good angle. And then there must have been a moment where I realized, because I kind of went, and then I thought, no, this is way too obvious. So I'm going to push this down again. So anyway, that was pretty funny.
So you got the feet of that cracking gig.
Yeah, the feet. Yeah, I mean, that's it. But in terms of like just doing little jobs that really make you happy and be grateful for the things you have done. And although this has been a bit of a, well, it's been a lot of a shit year
Yeah.
for lots of people. And as you know, Lee and I both got COVID in February.
Yes.
So that was pretty crap, and it's a horrible illness, and I can absolutely see why it was taking people down. You know, anyone who had any weakened state or any kind of health problem, or if you were elderly, I can see why it's taken so many people.
Yeah.
Thankfully, we were both okay after kind of a good couple of 3 weeks, and yeah, so there's a moment where you think, actually, I've had the virus, so I feel a little bit calmer about being
Sure.
out and going to the shops and doing things like that. But I guess the advice I would say is to people is just to see, we're coming to the end now, so don't blow it, you know, do the little things, do all those things, because we're never going to get this, well, hopefully never going to get this much time in our own houses again. So use it to kind of declutter your loft, or look through memories, or change your house up, or just read a book that you've been meaning to read for ages, or, you know, watch that collection of things on the telly that you've been put on record and say, oh, I'll watch that one day. You know, things like that is what I've been doing, what normal people have been doing, you know.
Well, it's an opportunity, isn't it? I think the right thing to do, it's very easy to focus on the negatives and all this time that you're missing with friends and family and work and all of that stuff. It's very, very easy to go down that rabbit hole and become very depressed and fed up of it. For me, initially, it was a real novelty, because
you've never spent that much time at home.
Never had that much time at home in my life. I could focus on new elements of new ventures that I'd started previously. Obviously with the voiceover and stuff. And during the time, it's opened other doors to me with things like presenting and things and stuff for Blue Hat, which I'm sure as a company you're very aware of as well, because of Lee's been involved in it and Nick's been involved in it. We're all just one little family running the world. So
we are.
So yeah, I totally second it. It was a case of, totally second what you're saying and your sentimentality. It was a great opportunity to sort of do some things that you don't normally have the time to do, and not feel bad for it as well.
Yeah, that's it. And then if you don't feel like doing them, there's no pressure, because you can't go anywhere out. You know, you can't do anything else. Even if you've just kind of survived and got up and got dressed every day, then that is enough. You know, for some people. For me, I'm a doer, so I wanted to have things that I'd achieved, and, you know, going through lists of really little mundane things like clear out the shed. That was one of my, and, you know, you feel super achieved when you've done it, and you think, well, actually, I wouldn't have done this if I could have gone to the pub, or if I could have, you know, gone and seen my mates, or if I could have done this or done that, you know. So I think just those small wins are really important.
Absolutely. And just one more thing before we wrap it up. Obviously, we've spoken about all the people you know that's involved in our show, but we've forgotten one person. We forgot one person who is still every now and then still does stuff for our show, which is your lovely mum.
Oh, my mum.
Who does all of our costumes, Geraldine, who works and repairs our costumes, and created some of our costumes. So how is she? Is she all right?
Yeah, she's good. They're just kind of cracking on the way that mums and dads always do. They're just getting on, and she's the same as me. You know, I'm cut from the same cloth as my mum, and that she wants to she's a doer, so she just gets stuff done. She's just been filling her time, doing her sewing, doing some jobs here and there, and, you know, so yeah, she's good.
Oh, good. I'm glad. Well, I hope to see her soon, and more so, I really hope to see you and Lee soon as well.
Me too.
Not too long now, hopefully a couple more months with a bit of luck, fingers crossed.
That's it.
And we can get there. Well, Beau, thank you so much for today. I really appreciate you taking time out of your hectic schedule and life, and having some fun with us here today. And
a pleasure, and thank you.
And thank you for coming on, and hopefully, as I said, we'll see you not just in person but up on stage sometime with us again soon.
Oh, that would be so good. I'm not sure I know how to wear heels anymore, though, to be honest, because I've been in slippers for like a year, so you know.
That's fine. Slippers will be fine. We'll keep it cash. We'll keep it
Okay,
cash to
great,
start with.
great. That's fine.
Rubber
That's all
jacks. I
good
mean,
then.
loafers are similar to slippers. Certainly mine are how knackered they are. So, yeah. Well, thanks again, and we'll see you
Thank
soon.
you. Take care. Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.